Good morning, everyone. It's a quiet morning at my house today. We're almost out of bread, but we still have some left. So I'm just going to do a half recipe today. And I'm also going to do a slightly higher hydration than the regular beginner bread recipe. So as always, in the description of this video, I've pasted the link to all of our tutorials and to the full length version of the beginner bread recipe. So if you want to see the whole thing beginning to end, it's all there. It's like a 16-minute video and you can see everything. So this is my starter. It's actually straight out of the fridge. I haven't let it come to room temperature or anything. But as you can see, it's risen, it's peaked. It's probably a little bit past peak right now. Smells like it. I don't know if you know, but if you let your starter go past peak, it will give your bread a stronger taste. So the beginner bread recipe calls for 120 grams of starter, 680 grams of water, 1,000 grams of flour, and 20 grams of salt. The level 2 is 200 grams of starter, 700 grams of water, 1,000 grams of flour, and 20 grams of salt. So today I'm going to do a half recipe. So I'm going to take 100 grams of starter out of my jar, and then I'm going to add 350 grams of water. So my starter is super thick because it is straight out of the fridge. Okay, so starter, and now we'll just tare our scale back to 0, and we're going to add 350 grams of water, and it's just straight up tap water. Okay, so I'm just going to use a whisk and blend the starter and water together. The video I'm working on right now to upload to YouTube soon is about sourdough myths. So in the big Sourdough for Beginners group, I posted a thread the other day and said, hey, tell me what your myths are. And it's gotten just hundreds of comments. And so I'm going to debunk some myths on YouTube soon. One of them is that you can't use metal. I use a metal bowl, I use a metal whisk. Another one is you can't use plastic. I keep my starters in a plastic starter jar. Okay, so we've got 100 grams of starter, 350 grams of water. They're blended. Now I'm going to add 500 grams of flour and 10 grams of salt. So this is the half version of the recipe. So I'm just using like the cheapest all-purpose flour that you can get in the biggest bag from Walmart. My kids like it when I make all white bread, so I'm going to cater to them today. A lot of times I'll add like spelt or whole wheat or something else, but the kids are going to be very active this weekend. We're going to go ice skating and all that, so I'm just going to make them the bread they like so that it's easier when it comes time to make supper. So 500 grams of flour. Perfect. And then I'm just going to turn my scale back to 0. And again, another myth is that everything has to be super precise. I actually ended up with like 104 grams of starter and 360 grams of water and 510 grams of flour. It's fine. Everything's fine. It's easy. You don't have to worry too much. So 10 grams of salt. The more important thing is the processes. So you've got to get a good shaggy mix. You've got to give some good stretch and folds to build some strength in your bread. And you have to bulk proof well. And if you go to the tutorial link, there's a video called Do This One Thing for Bulk Proofing Success. And it's just where we put our bread in clear straight-sided containers and mark their height so that we can actually watch and see how much your dough has risen. These are the things that are going to give you perfect bread. Not having a scale, not having a Dutch oven, not being exactly precise, not using a certain kind of flour, none of these things. So all I ever do is I just start to blend my flour and salt into my starter water mix until it gets, you know, too thick to mix with a spoon. And then I usually just finish it up with my hands. Ooh. Well, and now we have a little less flour. Not sure if you guys could see that, but I just exploded my flour all over me. But that's okay. I'm not even dressed yet. I'm still in my PJs, so I don't mind. And of course, I forgot to put my apron on. It's hanging back there, being very helpful in protecting me from flour. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I've got this blended so that most of the starter and water are absorbed. So now I'm just going to use my hand and get them to mix together well. So again, this is a level 2 hydration, so it's still not super high hydration, but it's higher hydration than the beginner bread recipe. This higher hydration is going to give me just a little bit more spring, a little bit more air in my loaf, but it's a little harder to work with. It's stickier, it's more finicky, it's going to rise faster. So I recommend that beginners start with the beginner bread recipe, master the techniques and the processes, and then start increasing their hydration. So I've got this mixed to a shaggy dough. So now I'm going to let it sit for 30 minutes. And then after 30 minutes, I'm going to stretch and fold. And then repeat, wait 30 minutes and stretch and fold until I get to 4 stretch and folds. Then I'm going to transfer this dough into my clear straight-sided containers. I'm going to mark its height. I'm going to stick a lid on it, put it beside my oven. And in my house, we're at about 71 degrees. And my dough is usually fully bulked proof within about 5 hours. So today it's 10 to 9. So 9:20, 9:50, 10:20. I'll be done stretching and folding by about 11. So that means I'll probably be able to bake this loaf around 5 today. And like I said, I still have a little bit of bread left. So I may bake this at 5, or I might pre-shape it and shape it and then put it in the fridge to cold proof overnight. Cold proofing allows your gluten to just continue developing and will give you more flavor in your loaf. I don't usually do it. I usually knead the bread that I have. I'm gonna clean this off my hands. But I might tonight because I may not need the bread. We'll see how lunch goes. So anyways, I just like coming on and doing these lives so that you can see, like sourdough, when you go Googling, it seems so hard, but it's actually really easy. And if you just practice those main, sort of essential processes, then in no time you should be able to get a really good loaf. So while I'm here, this is mixed to a shaggy dough. I'm going to let that sit for a minute, and I'm going to refeed my starter. And then, even though it hasn't been 30 minutes, I'll show you a quick stretch and fold. Wow, I really got flour everywhere. Okay, so I took 100 grams out of my starter. So now I'm going to replace what I put in my starter. I maintain a 60 gram 1-to-1-to-1 ratio, which means when I feed my starter, usually what I do is discard 120 grams and then refeed 60 grams each of flour and water. But today I only needed 100 grams for my loaf, so I'm just going to replace what I took out. So I'm going to put 50 grams of flour in. Same thing, it's just regular all-purpose flour. You can use any flour you want in your starter. So 50 grams. And then we're just going to add 50 grams of water. And we're going to give it a good stir. So I keep my starter in a sealed container. I think that starters do benefit from having air, and but I think that they get all the air that they need when you open them up to feed them and work with them and give them a good stir. It aerates them nicely. And then the sealed lid keeps out mold. I mean, you could still make it mold even with the sealed lid, but I think you're less likely to get mold with a sealed lid, and you are less likely to attract fruit flies because they are attracted to fermentation, and that's what starter is fermented flour and water. So my starter's refed, so it's back down. I'll just move my elastic up a little. So now it's just gonna bubble and grow and get strong again. So before I go, I just want to show you a pretend stretch and fold. So let's pretend that this dough has been sitting for 30 minutes. It hasn't. It's only been like 5. But we're just going to do a quick stretch and fold. And what I want is for you to pay attention to the consistency of the dough. Your first set of stretch and folds, the dough is still very shaggy. It's literally just going to come up and start ripping and falling apart. So as you can see, right? So we just want to go around, lift it up and fold it back on top of itself. Your first stretch and fold is really just finishing the mixing process. But if you notice, it's already starting to resist the stretching. So when you're stretching and folding dough, what you're doing is building strength. You're getting those gluten structures to grab onto each other. And every stretch and fold within one stretch and fold process, and then every time you repeat the stretch and fold process, adds more strength to your dough. When you start to become more advanced at sourdough, there's ways to know for sure that you've built exactly a perfect amount of strength. But the safe thing to do as a beginner is just to say, okay, well, I'm going to do 4 stretch and folds 30 minutes apart. So that's what I've got here. So that's it. Like, how long have we been at this? I don't know, 10 minutes or so. Sourdough should be that easy. If you've got an established starter, then you should be able to just come in the morning, mix up a quick batch, you know what I mean? Go have your shower, go get ready for the day, come back and stretch and fold a few times, and then plunk this thing into a proofing container on the counter that you can watch. If you can't watch it, put it in the fridge and then take it out to finish bulk proofing later when you can watch it. It should be really easy. So the video that is linked in the description of this video covers everything from making a starter to making the beginner bread recipe to increasing your hydration. And it also includes a conversion to cups if you don't have a scale. So you should be able to do it. You should be able to make sourdough no matter what. I've got shorter videos. The beginner bread recipe video is only about 9 minutes long. So that you can find through the second link that's in the description. As always, if you've got questions, post them in the comments, because whatever questions you have, somebody else has, and it really helps people. And there we go. Happy sourdough. I hope everybody has a great day. And maybe, depending on how the day goes, I might come on a little later and show you guys the proofing bowls, which will be 8:55. I'm going to stretch and fold at 8:30, 9, 9:30, 10, maybe around 10 o'clock. No, sorry, it's 9 o'clock now. 9:30, 10, 10:30. Yeah, but sometime between 10:30 and 11, I'll get this put into proofing containers and show you if I can get back on here. Okay, thanks guys. See you later.